Thank you, Vivian. It's a very nice introduction. Well, we have been here one whole day of Bangladesh, Bengal, and I'm happy to be the last one. I mean, I'm sure that there'll be more coming, but not tonight. We have a panel discussion afterwards. Well, I'm very happy to be back here about 2 years, and I'm very happy to see Hubertus. We met in January 2015, and I came to see the museum. There was a beautiful exhibition at the time happening. It was called Textbau. And I was amazed to see that exhibition because we know of writing in the form of books or in other, but to see it as an exhibition. Architectural writings, exhibited architectural writings in the press. And I don't know, I didn't think that we were going to come back with a whole lot of Bengal things, Hubertus. And I'm so happy that Andreas and of course Nicholas was the reason that I was here in January 2015. And Vivian, we made it. We brought Bengal, Bangladesh, here in Basel, and we have spent the entire day talking about Bangladesh. So that's a wonderful feeling. And then, as I'm closing, I'm the last speaker, I must refer a bit to Kazi's presentation. I would say that it was a wonderful way to open the symposium. We have been working together for quite a while. We have studied together, and still we share the same ideas. So the image that is here, which is used in the title, I have reversed it. But it was done before I knew that Kazi was also going to show we share 2 days. I go to this institute, and we are, for the last 2.5 years, we have been intensely engaged in researching, in putting together design proposals, and carrying out architectural education, landscape education, culture, this sort of seminar type, workshop type programs for the last 2.5 years. And we can tell you that the last 2.5 years, the way we have been trying to understand the land, the people of particular of the Bangladesh context, I'm amazed as an architect because we have a multidisciplinary team. We have geographers who are now excited to be with architects, producing amazing type of maps. Nicholas had sent me some maps from Switzerland, and I was very impressed to see that. And without knowing, we were doing very interesting these maps. We have people fabricating, making things. We have transportation engineers studying on transportation issues. Bangladesh faces traffic issues and all this. So when I was coming, I mean, this is, I think, the day before we were flying out, and I had my geographer drawing on this Dhaka region maps, and I came across this watershed map he has produced. And I said, look, this is what I need for my presentation. And because it's all these streams that are there, this is a watershed diagram, part of the Dhaka region, and how they sort of flow into a larger stream, and then into the river, and then this whole system of water and land. So I use this in my title. It also has another sort of meaning or message. Because in the title I use my name, Saif Ul Haque, and then there's the Bengal stream, and then the Swiss architecture. So what I'm trying to express in this slide is that you have the individual, you have the small stream, and then they forge into a larger stream, a larger network. We are all connected. when this morning Kazi showed this slide of Basel and Dhaka, I couldn't tell that he was having two images over there. One was this alpine landscape, and the other was the deltaic landscape. But they look so connected. So I'm very happy that we are getting this scope of getting connected. Thanks to Nicholas, thanks to Vivian, thanks to Andres, thanks to all of you. This is an amazing thing happening. So this one is this, the individual and the collective, and all the wonderful work that we all architects are doing all over the world. Many we do not know, many we know of. And this exhibition, this publication, is one of those things that sort of lets all of us know about what each of us are doing, what all of us are doing. Even in the days of internet, this exhibition, these publications, they have not lost their appeal, they have not lost their meaning. So the next image is going to be also about connection. So this morning Kazi was referring to Tagore. So this is an image of Tagore and his family in Switzerland, in Villeneuve, Switzerland in 1926. And he came to meet this French writer, Romarola, and he was so impressed and he was so sort of pleased. He has come after Italy, he has been to Italy, and the reception he got from Mussolini, he felt good, but he was told that that wasn't good. So he thought, okay. So in the 20s, we had Tagore coming here, and as Kazi mentioned in the morning, yesterday, about our father of the nation, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, coming in 1972. He had an operation, a surgery in London, and he was sort of invited by the Swiss government to come and have his recovery in Switzerland. And so these are interesting connections that we sort of dig up at times. We like to feel that, yes, it is all about connections. I prepared this slide for this presentation, that when one is born at a particular time, I was born in 1958, you inherit things. It's because things have been done prior to your birth. And then in 1983, I completed my studies of architecture. So in 25 years, further accumulation was done to that inheritance. And when one works, I continued to work in Bangladesh, and I felt, especially this morning we're talking about Chetana, how we had questioned things at that time in the early 80s. And there was this feel, the urgency that we need to establish connection to history, to the land where we're going to work. And at that time, we thought that it was not actually happening in that way. So this slide, in the exhibition you will be seeing a lot of drawings and slides that. So here with these 4 slides, I put together 1,200 years. So this is from 8th century, that's from 12th century, that's from 15th, 16th century, and that's from early 20th century. So one can see that how architecture transforms in a particular place. These are all from Bangladesh, all from Bengal, and all within Bangladesh now, not in West Bengal. So in one particular place, over time, things do not remain the same, so they transform. So architecture is also about transformation, not only about connection, but transformation. So we'd like to be in an environment where there's change and there's connectivity. And then, after 1947, things change. There was the end of colonial rule. We become independent. And Kazi mentioned that how we looked to modern architecture that originated in Europe and America for the new beginning of architecture, but not as a wholesale importation or copying, rather inventing modern architecture in Bangladesh in the particular context of Bangladesh. The Institute of Fine Arts, the library, the institute building, the hostel, all in 20 years, 1953 and 1968, 69. So that was before we became independent. And then it was not only Mazhar Islam. We had also a host of architects from abroad who were invited to come and bring their ideas. So we had Paul Rudolph, we had Stanley Tigerman, we had Doxiadis, we had Bob Buey, and all of them were invited to come because there was a vacuum. In 1947, there was no architect, formally trained architect in Bangladesh. Mazhar Islam was the first architect who was trained. He went to the US, he got his undergrad, and then he started practicing. So the image that I had shown earlier, in 1953, he was 30 years old, and he produced those two wonderful modern buildings for Dhaka. And of course, Louis Kahn. And again, Mazhar Islam plays an important role. He was asked to design this complex, and he politely refused, but not a refusal with a condition. He said that, I'm not going to work, but I have a condition. You have to invite a leading mind of the world to design this project. So the list, number 1, Corbusier, number 2, Alvar-Aalto, and number 3, Louis Kahn. Corbusier couldn't make it. He was already too busy with Chandigarh. Aalto was on his way, and he had to be brought to a sanatorium here in Switzerland, or I don't know, but that's the story, that he fell ill and he needed to be here in Switzerland for, again, recovering. And it was Khan who received this brief telegram from Pakistan that, would you be interested to do this for him? And here in Delta of Bangladesh, he has produced one of his wonderful work, the magnum opus of his work. And then it was not only Khan, not only Mazhar Islam, there were generations to follow. And this is after 71, when we had younger architects, younger to Mazhar Islam, who had come and who have started doing things in a particular type of language. So we had Saif Ul Haque, this office building, then we had Rabiul Hussain, Raziul Ahsan, and Uttam Shaha. They're all in the 80s. Bashir, am I right? This is from the 80s, the BCIC. So 80s was a period like the 50s and 60s, which was again a very interesting, a very vibrant period. 80s and 90s in Bangladesh was another period where architecture was, it's kind of trying to find a very clear expression. And there were quite a few of these projects. And at the same time, there were things that was going where architects in that way were not involved. That is the rural landscape, the villages, where people have been building from time immemorial in mud, in bamboo in the plains, bamboo in the hills, with corrugated iron sheet. So they're still today a huge kind of a repository of vernacular architecture that is existing in Bangladesh. And for me, that was an inspiration. In the 80s, when I graduated from the school, I took the rural architecture, the vernacular architecture, as my point of reconnecting to the place that I was going to work. And the landscape, the water. So, I mean, it was so important to reestablish this connection to the place where I was going to design and build. And this is the place. Paddy field, some undulation, and the urban area. That's Bangladesh. I don't have any images of the river. And then the vernacular architecture, the arrangement of the village houses, the courtyards, the pavilions, the veranda, the thick walls, the leaking of one space into the another. I mean, to me, that was my teacher, that I could learn from this and I could do an architecture that could be inspired by this. So the first project that I could sort of elaborate on this inspiration was a training center that I was doing for this, the partnership I had with Jalal, and it was 91. I had my first opportunity to try out a large-scale project. So this is the landscape that we saw. And on one side, this is the typical Bengali rural landscape, and the other side, there was this new training center that has been built for the agriculture department. You can see on the right over there. And let me see the point. Yeah. So this was quite normal because a block and then stacking it. So when I looked at this other side, when we looked at the other side, when I looked at this situation, I somehow felt that we are not going to do something like that. We really would like to connect with this than that, with no disrespect to that. But we felt that there was something here that needs to be discovered and brought into the formal architectural world. And this is the plan that we organized at that time. 3 groupings with a big pond to get the land to raise, floodplain. So this was the academic and the common facilities, the dormitories for the trainees. This was a training center for people from the villages coming to get training, to get organized to fight poverty, to work for development. You know that in Bangladesh, the NGO movement has covered a lot of ground, and BRAC is the world's largest NGO. And also there was another thing which Kazi referred about this, our sort of connection with socialism. So this NGO movement was also patronized by mostly Americans who wanted that this marginal poor people not to go on a radical path of socialism. So this microcredit and other things were introduced. Anyway, this was a training center that we designed in 91. As I mentioned, 3 groups of functions organized around courtyards, and the ground level. So there is this connectivity. I mean, during monsoon, one could walk through the covered path, and in the other seasons, you had the option of being in the open. The circulation and the section. So, open to sky spaces, shaded spaces, and covered spaces. All in the modest scale of 2 stories. Construction in the rural context, difficult to carry materials. Brick was from the nearby kilns, and cement and steel had to be brought, but there was a highway, we were next to a highway. You can see the scaffolds, props, the work. And this is how one would build in the 90s. And right after completion, we went to the agriculture building on the roof, and we photographed the complex after it was. And we thought that we had connected. It's you that you can judge. And these are photographs which were taken right after the construction, and then after vegetation has grown, the entry area, and then courtyards, and very simple construction technology. The dormitories, again, connectivity with the interior and the exterior. So these are covered spaces, but these are walkways which only have the roof, but it's just for you to get protected from the rain and the sun. So you have the choice option of being in the out. And we were also working with very tight budget. So we had to devise ways of keeping the rain out and letting the air in without much. And then as the place started getting lived, trees were growing, blossoming, and people were, I would say, at home. These were dormitories. And we devised a system of dormitories where they were like small houses. Instead of having a large building of dormitory, we had small houses, and we had both male and female participants, so the houses could be allotted in that way, and they could have interact in that way. And then going up in the water tank, looking from above the clusters, the houses. And more, again, how it is connecting to the landscape beyond the site. With very close spacing, we got another opportunity of designing a similar training center, but this was on the edge of one of the cities, the 10th largest city in Kashef's, larger than Basel or Zurich. That's what you said? Zurich, yes. Zurich would be the 11th. That's what you mentioned. So this was in Jessor, so at the edge of the city. This is how we got the site, the path leading into the site. And this is the master plan we worked out. So this is the photograph which I had shown, the path leading into this site. It was more compact than the other training center, and we went for a little compact organization, but still with courtyards and this pavilions. Okay, I see Vivian. So let's just see the images. I'm not going to, yeah, because we had. So this is how the functions are grouped. The water body is existing. The circulation, the first flow, circulation, and the section. I just have to the water, the courtyard, the houses. And again, images right after construction and after it's getting used. The first courtyard, the academic courtyard, the entry, using local handmade bricks, and the fenestration for the tropical climate, and the residential units, and of course, the monsoon drama. So I'm showing clouds instead of rain, so we have seen some. So I thought that this would be a very dramatic moment to picture, to photograph the project. And then, interestingly, the client for that project was a Bangladeshi NGO that was funded by a Norwegian group. And then I had a French archaeological team who had seen that project, earlier project, and wanted me to design this camp house. They were there for 3 months in a year, excavating archaeological relics. And this is the site we got, and this is what we had proposed. So there was this river, Karotoa, a ruin of a temple, the museum, the guest house, the office. So this was the site that was given to us, and we proposed this house and a workplace for this archaeologist, 2 courtyards, one for work and other for living. So this was the area where the archaeologists would work, and this is where they would retire, rest. All a single story, because we're close to the rampart and we wanted to keep it modest. The plan, again the section, the building, courtyard, building, courtyard. So open, void, and closed. And for the bedrooms, we created a buffer of brick screen, a void, to allow privacy, and you can keep the windows open. So the entry from the west, we wanted to catch the southern breeze, but we wanted to protect from the western sun. So we had, this is the east, with some palm trees. We kept the palm trees. And the courtyard of the workplace from the roof and from the ground. The courtyard of the residential part, and the screen that I was talking about, the buffer, and the details with handmade brick, cement, and the panorama, and the roofscape. Again, wanted to establish connection. That's the rampart of the ancient city of Pundronagar. That's where the book's name comes from, Pundronagar. And this was our roof terrace. So voids and solids and the connection. A hostel in Chittagong, the site, the plan. It was done in 2 phases. We built this first hostel, the second hostel. There was the existing temple, there was water, the grouping, the circulation, first floor, circulation, section, the first building, the courtyard of the first building, and then the second building, the connections between the first and the second, and getting to the edge of the water, and we had this water tower. We could look at the plaza that was being built at the time. And finally, this project. So those, all the other 4 projects were built in the 90s. And there's been a bit of a gap till my next project, and this was in the early 2010, 11. I got to see a site that my aunt has purchased. She wanted me to have a look at this place. She wanted to build a school. And when I visited the site, this was somewhere like, I think it's October, right? And I said, where is the land? It's only water I see. And she said that, no, no, land will emerge. It's like that the land is not there. So I visited a month later, and I really saw the land emerging. But what to do? A place which remains submerged in water for 8 months, or 4 months, and 8 months is land. So what is the strategy we could take? We could raise, and when the water comes, if we are above the flood level, we are safe. But the narrow strip of land that I had, if I was giving the proper slope, I would lose the land. I just could probably place the school. I could do it on stilts. So when the water comes, we are again free. But during the dry season, I think that this space and going up to the school over there probably was not a good idea for the children. And also it was going to be quite expensive. So we thought that why not do something which could be amphibious, but with very limited resources, with low tech, not very high tech. So these are the images that we created. And this is the kind of the assembly that we thought of using old car tires, old steel drums, bamboo all along, tarpaulin. And we devised a module which could go up and down. During water it floats, and during the dry season it could rest on ground. So most of the materials were kind of recycled stuff, and some were new things. So this is how we assembled the whole thing, and this is how it was devised to sit in the landscape. The plan. We needed to sort of create a level ground, because they needed the structure needed to rest not on an undulate, and so we shaved off the top. We collected the soil, we put it in cement bags, and we created this protection from. So this is, you can see in this image is how it was put together. So these were the earth that was collected from here and put here to protect the site. And this is how it proceeded. So by June, I mean, we started in December 2014, and by June 2015, we already had water. But we're lucky that we had put the substructure, and so it could float, and we could continue constructing it on water. And this is the photograph that how it was put together on various times. This is in the exhibition, so I'm not going to explain much. Some of the images are already there, the way we put it together, and when the water came, how it was like. And when the water was not there, we had this beautiful mustard field, and it was setting again, water came. We put up signboards, fencing, and then we mapped the coming of water and receding of water. And then my aunt, she also has a nursery, and she was running the school earlier in a rented premise, and she had this nursery, plant nursery, to support the school. But when she brought this thing, she raised the ground. But what happened in one monsoon, I think, that was not enough. So it got flooded. She lost a lot of plants. And the school was used to sort of as a rescue place for the plants. So some of the plants were moved to the corridors of the school. So then again, we devised, again, using used plastic bottles, nylon ropes, bamboo, to make a floating platform, and with the skills of the people who build to put a floating pavilion. So we would like to implement this, I mean, like a terraced nursery, so the lower level can get flooded and she can still have the plants. That's it. Thank you so much.